All right, in this explainer, we're going to completely reimagine our inner lives. We're diving into this incredible ancient dialogue from the Sutra of the Bodhisattva Pitaka. A past Buddha is speaking to a prince named Viryadatta, and, he doesn't just hand him a list of good deeds to do. Instead, he reveals the literal mechanics of a spiritual heartbeat.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that things like love and compassion, they aren't just moral checkboxes. In the unawakened mind, we kind of treat being good as this external virtue to acquire, like adding a new skill to a resume. But this sutra frames the four immeasurables, kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, as the fundamental life breath of the awakened mind. They are literally a biological necessity for your spiritual survival.
And this is the sutra's central beating metaphor. Think about your physical body right now. You don't consciously decide to be a breathing person because it's the moral thing to do, right? You breathe because you have to. The Buddha is telling the prince that you cannot practice the spiritual path without these four states any more than you can live without taking your next physical breath. Let's walk through the 4 steps: kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. We're going to treat each one not as some abstract concept, but as a rhythmic expansion of your heart's radius, moving step by step from the self all the way out to the infinite.
Number 1. Kindness, the infinite radius. To really get this, we kind of have to throw away our modern, watered-down version of kindness. It is definitely not just a polite smile. Unlike the unawakened mind, which constantly constricts, protecting me and mine, kindness is this massive outward push. It's an active, mathematical expansion of the heart. The goal here is to stretch your internal borders until they seamlessly match the limitless borders of the universe, reaching literally every corner of existence without missing a single sentient being.
Now, because human minds really struggle to comprehend this level of infinity, the Buddha offers a staggering thought experiment to show the prince exactly how far his kindness needs to reach.
The text asks us to imagine taking all the sand of the Ganges River, grinding it down into tiny fractions, and then comparing that to microscopic water drops resting on the very tip of a single hair. And even if you could somehow calculate and count all those microscopic drops across the entire universe, the Buddha says the radius of the Bodhisattva's kindness is vaster still. Now that is a true outward breath.
Number 2, compassion, the inward breath. So if kindness is the outward expansion, compassion is the sharp, vital inward breath. And it's triggered by a very specific realization. Once your radius has expanded, you look at the world and see that sentient beings are trapped. They're caught by the 5 hindrances and by their own inverted views, meaning we are constantly suffering because we fundamentally misunderstand reality. We're out here confusing the impermanent for the permanent and pain for pleasure.
The sutra uses these haunting, highly visceral metaphors to show exactly what compassion sees when it looks at our confused world. It sees us as blind men walking directly toward a dangerous cliff. It sees us as foxes fighting over scraps in a dark graveyard. We are bound by 7 types of arrogance and these heavy ropes of worldly attachment. Compassion is that sudden gasp you take when you see someone you love in imminent danger.
Notice the difference in mechanics here. The constricted mind judges the blind man at the cliff, maybe mocking his ignorance or feeling intellectually superior. But the expanded mind of compassion, it doesn't judge. It just urgently reaches out to pull him back from the edge. It acts as a pure, non-judgmental guide away from danger.
Number 3, joy, unshakable delight. Okay, so with the lungs full from that inward breath of compassion, we move to joy. And again, we have to totally redefine our terms here. This is completely divorced from the fleeting, fragile happiness of just getting what we want. This joy is an unshakable, non-jealous light. It rejoices entirely in the liberation of others. The text actually says you must protect this state like you would protect your own head or your own eyes. It's a profound delight that persists even when the world pushes back. True joy can look right at hostility, hear terrible abuse, and just absorb it completely without losing its internal rhythm. It endures it all with a joyful and tolerant heart because you see its source of happiness isn't dependent on external praise at all.
It describes a mind completely devoid of jealousy. Because your heart's radius has expanded so incredibly far into the universe, there is no longer a strict border between you and them. Because of that, someone else's success or spiritual wealth is literally experienced as your own. You share everything. You don't secretly hoard a single drop.
Number 4,
Equanimity, the ultimate balance. Finally, we reach the exhale. Equanimity is the ultimate settling balance that brings the entire cycle of the breath into absolute harmony. But man, it is so often misunderstood as just not caring. It is absolutely not passive indifference. It's a fiercely active, multi-layer practice of spiritual and emotional balance. And the sutra breaks this down into 3 highly specific practices.
Equanimity requires super dynamic navigation of extremes. You've got to abandon afflictions, staying perfectly balanced in gain or loss. You have to protect self and others, which means a willingness to make the ultimate sacrifice without attachment. And crucially, it requires timeliness, knowing exactly when to let go so you can move forward without losing your center.
To really grasp this, imagine breathing through praise and insult with the exact same steady, unwavering rhythm. That's the balance of abandoning afflictions. You hear good words, your breath is steady. You hear bad words, your breath remains perfectly steady. You view friends and enemies with the exact same profound, stabilizing love.
And then there's the concept of timeliness, which is the ultimate wisdom of the flow. It means recognizing that clinging to anything, even something profoundly holy, like a specific meditation or spiritual practice, stops the breath. If a teaching isn't what someone needs in that exact moment, you let it go. You exhale, creating space for what comes next.
Section 5. Infinite Expansion, the Rhythm of Awakening.
This brings us to the profound realization that Prince Viryadatta discovers, pulling all 4 of these massive concepts into a single, beating heart. You don't achieve these 4 states, check them off a list, and put them on a dusty shelf. You live them, continuously. They form the life breath of the Bodhisattva, an unbroken rhythm of boundless connection.
It's a somatic, lived reality. You inhale, you see the world's pain with deep compassion, and you center yourself through the ultimate balance of equanimity. You exhale, you radiate that boundless, mathematical kindness outward, lit up by an unshakable joy. It is the very mechanics of a heart expanding outward until there is literally no other left at all.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, we are left with a pretty vital question. Look at your own life. Where does your radius stop right now? Who is inside it, and who have you pushed out? If kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity are not just polite virtues, but your very life breath, ask yourself, how deeply are you willing to inhale?